As part of our unit on the fight against addiction, our final activity is to connect you with the stories of community members who can help us more fully understand addiction. The conversation you are watching and listening to took place Thursday, April 15th, 2020, with former PSL student Alicia Johnson and her mom, Kathleen Johnson.
All right, so first, to begin by thanking Alicia and Kathleen Johnson for joining us today to share their family story in the hopes that it may help others who are struggling with addictions to seek help. Kathleen's 4 children graduated from Perry High School, and her grandson currently attends Perry local schools. She's an important part of the PSL family as she helps run the Thriving Threads clothing room and has supported lots of PSL initiatives over the past few years. Alicia's an important part of the PSL family too. She and her twin brother, Zach, graduated from Perry High School back in 2007, and both were members of the Perry Service Learning Program. Their sister, Morgan, also did PSL. Zach passed away from an overdose in 2016.
And I want to echo my thanks to both of you for being here. Unfortunately, there are many families who've experienced similar loss in Lake County. Lake County experienced 329 drug-related deaths between 2013 and 2017. There were no overdose deaths in 2013, 1 in 2014, 3 in 2015, and 4 in 2016. So I guess our first question is, why Perry? Why do you think so many young people in Perry are struggling with addiction?
I think because it's like a rural community, there's just not a ton going on. And for me, boredom was a big reason that I started experimenting with drugs. And I know a lot of people similarly, and probably my brother too. And it's just there's not a ton going on. So I mean, I think it is pretty widespread though. As far as I know, it's there's nowhere that it's not, but I know Perry being a rural, there's just nothing going on, not much to do.
As far as what Alicia said, substance abuse has long been prevalent in rural areas, starting with the tobacco use, the chew, alcohol, the methamphetamine, and, the heroin, all those problems. And I think that there is maybe not as much, I'm wondering if there's not as much supervision in Perry, the parental supervision. And a lot of parents work full time. Or there's also, I look at how easy it was for my son. He was involved in the 4-H program with other kids that had family farms or mini farms like we had. And, there's a lot of ways to be able to get off and away from people, outbuildings. It just wasn't a place that people could, like I said, they could spread out, they could get out, there's just all this land and, like I said, outbuildings that they could go and do things. I also think Perry, the problem with Perry is because being such a small community, I think one of the problems that I felt really strongly about is that the whole privacy issue with the community, everybody knows everybody's business. And if there are problems in family with substances, parents, rather than seeking help, would hide these kinds of things because of the stigma, because of the shame, because of the embarrassment, and just, try not to acknowledge it. I also felt that I knew that several of my son's friends, that there were families with alcohol and substance abuse even with the parents. And Marcel's included, my husband was an alcoholic, even though he had 10 years of sobriety in our almost 40-year marriage. It still affected our family. And then there's the genetic component. But I think these things were not addressed within the families, either personally or professionally. Also, once people were discovered and maybe were trying to get help, our community had no place for treatment, no place for detox. it wasn't readily available for young people that needed help. And again, you'd have to seek it elsewhere in the state, and sometimes drive long distances, which I have many times, for treatment, for visitation, etc.
Thank you. Alicia, this question's for you. Is there a typical profile for an addict?
I mean, I don't think so, really. One thing I've learned in the recovery and treatment process is that it really affects all people. It doesn't matter age, sex, race, anything. Really, it can affect anybody. People who don't have substance use in their family, people who do. I know, my mom was saying, there is genetics to it, and can be, but it can jump down the line. It's just, there's people who grew up in really great homes who I know and had no problems, nobody they knew in their family that's alcoholic or anything like that, and they've had problems personally. So it's I don't know, I think it's more it's more like a society problem with feeling isolated, feeling lonely, maybe risk-taking behavior, impulsive behavior, but I don't think it can affect anybody for sure, I think.
And just following up on that, did you think at any point that you would become an addict?
No, absolutely not. I think there's I started when I was I was drinking and doing other stuff all through high school, but I started using heroin when I was a senior and just trying it socially, and I don't know, I think that I thought that I was invincible. I think a lot of young people do think that it's not going to happen to them. It's that something they call it in AA that I go to is terminal uniqueness, that just idea that I'm different, that can't happen to me, I'm smarter, I'm different than that, I know better, anything, any kind of misconceptions, that there's so many of them. And I did really well in school, and I was able to maintain my grades despite being partying. And so I think that I thought that it was going to be fine, I wasn't experiencing consequences, and I don't know, I guess the biggest thing that will allow you to continue to use is not experiencing consequences, because without having consequences, there isn't a need for change. And I didn't have consequences for quite a long time, and then but it'll catch up with you, especially when you use anything, but especially with heavy drugs, it will catch up to you. Even if it's a matter of time. So yeah, I definitely didn't think that. I was and I even went out my whole life, I was I'm not going to be like my dad, as in drinking, but I didn't, because of that, I didn't drink as much. So I was more doing other stuff because I viewed alcohol as the problem. Alcohol is what does that, but it's everything, any minor mood altering thing. If you're putting that in your body, if you feel there's a need to escape, or even if you're just doing it for fun or to try it, there's some kind of problem there. Why? You don't need to. There's no need to try that. You're playing with fire, especially with knowing everybody knows somebody that's happened to, or at least hearing it in the news, fentanyl, the deaths, everything else. It's dangerous for sure.
You know people who tried it recreationally first?
Well, I was one of them. It's not you go, because you don't try it thinking I'm gonna do heroin forever. You know what I mean? Nobody really it's not it. I don't think that's part of the thinking. Unless you're really devastated and you just you're, I don't know. But I think that's the minority. I think that everybody, for me, it was I tried other things first, and then it kept getting offered to me. And I would be no, because I was kind of scared. And eventually I was just yeah, I'll try it. It's fine. Because I've tried all these other things, and I haven't had daily use with them, really, but marijuana aside. But still, that did become a problem too. And it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But then you don't realize how quick it can have a hold on you, because you do it and then you try it in the first few times. And then the next thing you know, you're doing it all the time. it's not like you lose choice pretty quickly after like trying it. Like the first time you might choose to use it, but beyond that, like if you have like the genetics for it, or like alcoholic tendencies or whatever it is, like it's just like luck of the draw. It's not like that necessarily beforehand at all. It's just like, oh, a lot of people just continue doing it, and like pretty much anybody who has tried heroin that I know, maybe who like everyone's become like addicted because of the chemicals with that, because of the physical dependency. Like you do continue even if you don't have like necessarily alcoholic components. Like it's been that continuation because you then need it physically. So it's crazy, and it changes your brain. Like really takes the choice out of it, and it's crazy.
So once it had a hold on you, how easy was it for you to reach out to a dealer or multiple dealers to get the fixes you needed on any given day?
I would say for the most part, pretty easy. Just knowing people, like knowing from the circles that I ran in, I knew enough people who, and when you're an addict, like you're gonna go to the ends of the earth to get it. So it doesn't matter if it takes all day trying to figure out how to get it, because that's like your one priority all day. Like everything else is like becomes second priority, third priority, if you even ever get to them. Like everything else goes by the wayside, and like you do that on a day-to-day basis, like getting the money to get the stuff and everything. Like that's an all-day process sometimes, but so easy, I don't know. Like it is available and accessible if you know the right people and if you have the motives to get it, for sure. So
So one of the things that you mentioned was that your addiction started when you were a senior here at Perry, and that's when you were in my class and in Mark's class, and we saw you an awful lot. What do you wish that we would have noticed, your teachers or your friends, or what do you wish we would have done?
I mean, honestly, I don't think that would have made that much of a difference, just because you're not like, that was when it started, but I was used for, 10 years beyond that. And I had treatments and I had people knowing at that point, years down the road. And I didn't quit until I was ready. I was honest with myself, and I made the decision, like, it has to be from yourself to make that change in order to do it. Like at that point, I was still in the phase of like denial, thinking that I'm fine, like this isn't going to happen to me. I'm just like recreationally. I mean, like there's some things that go along with heroin use, like pinpoint pupils, like itchiness, like drowsiness, like there's some like signs. But I mean, even if people wouldn't have noticed and tried to do anything, I don't know that it would have. The best thing to do is to just not try it, because like you're playing with fire. It's Russian roulette, and like if you try it at all. So,
but would you say, question for Alicia, would you say that you were using a lot at school during the school day, or was it more like weekend?
Yeah, when
night?
I first started as a senior, it was more like, spotty. It didn't become daily for like months after I had first tried it. I mean, only a few months, but still, it wasn't like I was like, I mean, I definitely was intoxicated at school, like if not on that, on other stuff, but it wasn't like daily. It wasn't like constantly. It's easy. It's stuff that's, you could write off. And like, even if somebody had approached me, I probably would have just denied it, cause like, that's what we do as addicts and alcoholics. Cause we don't want to, especially when we're not ready to get better, we're not going to be honest about it. We're going to lie about it. We're going to deny it. And like, I did that with my mom for years. She lived in the same house as me. So.
Can you tell us a little bit about what phase of recovery you're in now, and how has this shaped the person you are today?
I'm in like the action maintenance stage. So I
love this part.
Yeah, I'm like so I'm like continuing. I go to AA, and I go to meetings and just try to help others. I work with a sponsor. I have had sponsees, so I work on both sides of it, and just continuing to try to get better one of the biggest things is like being of service to other people, which is like crazy because that's exactly what that class does. Like I've learned in my recovery that one of the biggest components of like continuing to stay sober is to be selfless and to help other people, like when I'm not going to get anything back from it, because like alcoholism and addiction is such like it's isolating and it's also selfish at the core. And so like service work brings you closer to other people, connection to other people, and also practicing that selflessness and trying to like do the opposite of what you would do like when you were getting high. So like being kind to people, caring about other people before you, doing the best you can to help other people, but yeah.
I'm sorry if you lost your
No,
train
you're
of
fine.
thought.
All good. All right, so can you hear us? You guys all good?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. So maybe Kathleen, a couple questions for you, if that's okay. When did you learn that Alicia and Zach were struggling with addiction?
I was clueless their senior year. I honestly, and I am an educator. I have 30 plus years teaching high school in an urban setting. I thought I knew kids. I was in, peer mediation at the high school. I'm a licensed social worker as well. I did social work at the high school social work, in addition to my teaching my classes. I thought I knew teenagers. Nobody could pull anything over on me. And these two were just really skilled at keeping this from me. I had no idea. I thought their senior year, I did notice that they were sleeping more, but they're seniors. Zach was working and going to school. Alicia was working really hard, getting good grades, preparing for college. I mean, she was a stellar student, a pretty much straight A student. I had no worries. How could she have these kinds of grades and be using drugs? I honestly, and I did not see alcohol use because I was so proactive from the time these guys were little bitties, even with the pediatrician talking to them about alcohol use, their dad's substance use, and then having them involved with Alateen when, I went to Al-Anon meetings. I think they just, I thought they got the message. These kids aren't even drinking. I was also vigilant about calling, which I'm sure was embarrassing to you and your brother, the parents when they were going to parties. Is there going to be alcohol there? That kind of thing. And my husband and I worked different shift. He worked second shift. I worked first shift teaching so that we knew that, because we knew that we're secluded out where we live, but there always would be a parent here at the house. And still, this happened. It was unbelievable. But how I found out was even more unbelievable. The summer after they graduated from high school, Alicia came to me and told me, "Mom, Zach and I are in trouble." In trouble? What kind of trouble could you be in? What do you mean in trouble? And she said, "Zach, with drugs, with using drugs." Oh, using drugs. Oh, well, what kind of drugs are you using? And she said, heroin. When I heard the word heroin come out of her mouth, I nearly fainted. I got instantly dizzy. This is how disturbing and shocking this was to me. I felt like I was going to faint. I remember having to sit on the couch, feeling like I was going to pass out. And I said, oh my God. And I had no idea what heroin was all about. If I would have known what it was all about, I would have fainted, indeed. I thought, this is bad, but I just had no knowledge. I mean, I guess I remember in the 60s hearing about heroin. So I thought people don't even do that anymore. I had no clue. I just couldn't believe it. And, I was really thanked her. I remember saying, thank you, Alicia, for telling me. I'm so glad you told me. I love you so much. We'll figure this out. I'll help you guys. The social worker popped out, all the thing, what can we do to get this done? And, but again, I had no clue what was involved with heroin. So I immediately, I just thought, oh, this is experimental. And, this is something that just, she's going to college in the fall. It's all set. Ohio Wesleyan, she's there. She'll forget. This is just something, I had no idea what was going to come for the next 8 years, which was truly hell. So I did everything to educate myself. I immediately that day, when she told me, called a parent of her boyfriend, who was, I feel, key in getting her involved in the use, and had her come immediately to me and told the mother. And also later on, my husband and I contacted other parents of our kids and met with them and talked to them about what we had learned and suspicions that their children might be involved. Some were in denial, total denial. Some of the parents were cooperative and wanted to work with us and wanted to help their kids, but many just closed the door in our face, keep your kids away from our kids, and didn't want to hear it, didn't want to deal with it in any way. So, it was difficult, but again, it was unbelievable.
After making those contacts with other parents, is there anything else that you did to support Zach and Alicia? Any other community resources that you leaned on to kind of guide you through this?
Not at this time. I was unaware of, who would help with this. Totally clueless. Even though I was a social worker, and I guess I had resources, but there wasn't anything really close at that time, which was 2008. It was Cleveland. You had your services in Cleveland, and they had told me that, they had been, go down to Cleveland and get, with people and get this. And I didn't want get them involved anywhere in Cleveland, because I figured that, that's just going to keep them in the mix. I'm going to get them out. Zach was going to Lakeland. She was going away. I was more or less. And I think maybe, did it stop for a while after you told me? Did you? Like I said, you must have hit it incredibly well, because, and even like I said, I never found any kind of signs of paraphernalia, anything to that, till much, much later, years later. So they were extremely, in the beginning, you must have been extremely careful. And again, between the two, there were two of them, between using outside and using together as twins. It was kind of the thing that it was like another connection that they had in this secret society. And, like I said, I was thrown for a loop. I didn't realize the seriousness of it. It took me a long time of being specifically educated in this particular chemical dependency and how it changed the brain and how it affected their brains. And I also learned about how much I never really felt that my kids needed help with mental health issues. They always seemed well balanced. And I later, looking back over things in their life, realized that they both had issues. Zach with the ADHD, I knew that from second grade, but I didn't really understand the impulsivity that went along with that. That would maybe make him more prone, the hyperactivity, the feeling like you're jumping out of your skin, wanting to find a way to calm down. We did not do medication with him. He was on Ritalin in second grade, a Ritalin trial. And it was very difficult to see him on that medication, because when it wore off, and at that time, again, the medications were very different. So this is going back to him in second grade. So I don't know what year that would have been. Yeah, mid 90s or so, or, you know, anyway, he would, when that would wear off, he would, I don't know how to say it, flip out. You know, he would go into the laundry basket and be just having like a meltdown. And my husband and I just looked at each other and said, forget this. We're just going to take him how he is. Thank you very much. We'll just deal with our kid because, yeah, he was hyperactive, but we're going to get him involved in things. We started him in, you know, CYO wrestling in third grade and all kinds of involvement with pets and, you know, physical activities. And you know, we just tried to keep him busy, basically run the heck out of him and tire him out. That was our solution. But I never thought like he should be having counseling for this. He should be having, you know, maybe some assistance, some behavior therapy. Alicia had anxiety issues that, again, to me did not seem out of the ordinary. Although I did know it was either your junior, senior year when she was supposed to be giving some oral presentations, and she refused to do that at the risk of having an F for the assignment. So having a 0 for the assignment. And I could not understand that because here's a student that is a straight A student, never had a detention in her entire life, never did anything wrong. But she could, and she said, Mom, it's not that I won't do it, it's that I can't do it. I cannot get up in front of the people and talk, because she had the symptoms of anxiety, sweaty palms, feeling a panic, feeling lightheaded, and those kinds of things. So she was having physical. So I think that I didn't realize that they each had some issues that should have been dealt with earlier on. Parents should listen to their children or watch for those kinds of signs. And then, of course, after the drug use, it was magnified. The anxiety and the hyperactivity that Zach had, the anxiety Alicia had, just was magnified so much because of the drug use. So when the drugs wore off, they might feel that anxiety, but what they felt when they were sober or before any kind of drug use was minimal compared to now what kind of anxiety they felt after the drug use, because it messed with the brain, and it, you know, it was, everything was blown up, those negative emotions, fears, and feelings.
So we know that you lost Zach in all of this. What do you want our students to know about Zach, or how do you want him remembered?
Well, Zach, I could talk about all day. So I tried to sort of condense this a little bit, because, you know, I miss him so much, but I am so grateful for this one. You know, she's gotten me through it. You know, I have her, and I'm, you know, I am so grateful that it could have easily been the two of them that day, and I could have neither of them. And I just feel like Zach started out the delivery was very, very difficult with them. So I almost lost him, basically. They were born a half hour apart. It was really difficult to have him. And anyway, he finally arrived, and, you know, it was kind of touch and go. But I look at it as a gift. The 27 years that I had with him was indeed a gift, because I could have lost him at birth and never had the rich experiences and memories that we have of my twins together and their relationship, and of my relationship with him. You know, just, he was an incredibly fun kid. I would have to say, you know, when he bounced in the room, other people just felt the energy. I'm sure you can maybe remember Zach. He displayed a lot of enthusiasm for whatever he did, good or bad. He did have a bit of an addictive personality. When he got into something, he got into it huge. So it would be like, it was paintballing. When he was into paintballing, it wasn't just he liked to shoot paintball around in the yard. Oh, no. There was a whole regime with it. I mean, there was a whole regiment of, getting the costume on, the outfit. He had a team of buddies that did it. They had me and his dad driving him all over the state to paintball tournaments. Paintball magazines. Same with four-wheeling. Same with wrestling. He was big time into wrestling for a long period of time. So it makes perfect sense that when he found drugs, he was really into that, like really deeply obsessed with it. I can imagine in a way that he had been with all these other things in his life, with the 4-H and the pigs. And he ended up being like a super showman in Lake County with 1 year. I think he was about 9th grade, maybe 8th or 9th grade. And he was number one in the county at the fair with all the youth for showing pretty much every animal that he could. Of course, we had a lot of variety of animals. Over here, we had like a little Noah's Ark. But, he was able to show the small animals, rabbits, dogs, as well as livestock, big livestock, horses, cows, pigs, and, was super showman. And he loved that, he loved that attention and making people laugh, because it was always funny to see kids trying to manage hogs. Alicia too. At one point, they provided a lot of humor in our life. But Zach is he was as in death as in life, which is why we're doing this. I feel like he's channeling me, still wanting to help others. He was a very helpful kid. He really enjoyed, like I said, making other people happy. And he was as a little boy, he was very energetic. He was full of adventure and mischief, but he had a zest for life. If people enjoyed something, say I shared cookies. Here's a plate of cookies to all the neighborhood kids. They would enjoy it, some a little more than others, but nobody like Zach enjoyed it. His enjoyment of things, the little things in life, it seemed multiplied, wasn't it? Like 5 or 6 times, what other people enjoyed, especially like food. He was really big into food and was very, kind of looked like he didn't have manners. He enjoyed it so much. He kind of lost. That was always, he always was a lot of laughs for the family. He was the family funny man, I guess you might say. But, he was really able to, and as things went along, even when he got into trouble, he got into a lot of trouble with the law, as well as Alicia. They both, had quite extensive, as this addiction will do, mostly with theft and not too much, and maybe possession. I think he had some possession. Anyway, he got into trouble with the law, but he was able so much to help other people that were incarcerated. He would cheer them up. Even the COs at the Lake County Jail knew me and would say, "You got the nicest kids of anybody we got in here." They knew both, and they were just, they're just the nicest, most likable kids. And, he had a diverse group of friends. Everywhere he went, Zach would make friends, and just, he could identify with a lot of different people and personalities. He really extended himself to people, and he was very intelligent, and again, had no trouble getting along with other people. But his outgoing personality, I don't think he had any enemies, even though he was involved, in some of this, shady, seedy kind of lifestyle. style. I don't think he ever had an enemy because he had such an outgoing, helpful personality. And he just demonstrated concern for other people and empathy. And it just, in a way that, like I said, you couldn't walk down the street with Zach in Paynesville. If there was a homeless person there, he had to stop and say, "Can I help you? Can I buy you, a burger? Can I help you in some way?" That's just his heart. He had this big heart, and he was very lovable in our family. He always called us his lovely family. Wherever he went, he wasn't ashamed to show affection to not just his nuclear family, but our extended family. He was very demonstrative of his feelings of love for his family, very huggy, and, he didn't care. He wasn't like, boys, they get to a certain age and they don't want to do that. Not him. He'd just grab and bear hug everybody if he could. But he was, like I said, he was just an amazing, big-hearted, lovable guy. But the addiction got the better of him. And he went to low points where the depression, the despair, the feelings of hopelessness were there, and he could verbalize that to me. A month before he died on my birthday, February 20th, my 60th birthday. And the day that he died, a month before that, in January, he came to me just crying his eyes out. "Mom, I'm trying so hard. I don't think I can do this. I need help. I can't do this on my own." And I said, "Zach, you can get help." And I had been told by other professionals that I should not make arrangements for him to get into treatment, only to provide him with the information, which would be names and numbers of places, which I did. In hindsight, I regret that very much. Zach had only had one bout of treatment, which he finished at Glen Bay, and was primarily addressing alcohol. He never had any treatment beyond that. A couple of outpatient stints after jail, as a terms of probation. But he was very, upset about the condition he was in. Zach has a young son who was living with us since he was born. He is a Perry student now in the 3rd grade. And little Tristan was born with substances, an addiction to substances because of his mother's use during the pregnancy, which has left him with some issues. And Zach really worked with him from the time he was just months old. So Zach never had custody. Neither of Tristan's parents had custody of him. And initially it was shared between the mother's family and our family, and then eventually it just went to our family. But Zach was very involved with extra services for Tristan, working in the home, with Tristan helping him catch up because he was delayed in many ways. Very hands-on dad. And like I said, when he was clean and sober, I had my son again. I had my wonderful son again. And then it would turn into the periods of slipping back into relapse, drug use, incarceration. And then, so it was a cycle. And when he got caught up in that cycle, and at that point in January, he was feeling like, I cannot get out of this. He never made the move to go ahead and get the treatment, which I feel is due to embarrassment and shame himself, not knowing what to say. It was still very stigmatized at that point. And the insurances, health insurance was an issue. Coverage for health insurance, no money to do this. So he was trying to do this at home, He was very intelligent, and he learned how to do detox at home, and he was getting himself sober at home. He could do it, but he couldn't maintain it. He could do it for a couple weeks, which is where I felt like he was at when he passed on my birthday. He just had gone to a friend's where I actually took him. I felt this friend to play video games. I felt this friend was not a person that used drugs. I believed him. I knew this person, and he was there, and he called me several times while he was there that day, as he always did. He was always very in touch with Mom, called me all the time. And he eventually, made a call that said, he sounded happy, he sounded straight. He said, "Mom, I'm so happy for you. It's your 60th birthday and it's 60 degrees today." It was that warm February day. And what a beautiful gift for your birthday, Mom. He just was simple things like that, affected him. It was sunny, it was beautiful. And I was to pick him up to go out to dinner with us later that day. I was unable to get a hold of him when it was time to go. And my husband insisted we go without him. And afterwards, on my way home, I tried to make calls to him to pick him up on the way home because he happened to be in Paynesville. My husband said, "No, he's a big boy now. He'll find his way home." Well, the only home he found his way to was heaven that night. So when we got home, there was a call from a nurse at Tri-Point to come there, that they had my son was there. And my husband said to the nurse, "Is he dead?" Thinking that we knew that overdoses were happening. We knew that he had Narcan before. Well, anyway, if it's too much for you, then. Okay, we'll
talk for like 10 minutes.
All right. I told you when I get on the Zach, I get stuff. But he's in a better place, and through his sister's work and efforts, helping people now, I think it will not be in vain. This death will not be in vain.
Well, Allison and I remember him in much the way that you described him, kind of walking into the classroom with a bounce in his step and doing a really good job at keeping the mood light. And even though he didn't always turn his work in on time, it was really difficult to get mad at him. He would smile at you when you reminded him that he was missing something, and it just kind of brought your guard down right away. And like you described as well too, he was really good about throwing himself in 100% to things that he cared about, like service. And I remember him especially during the holiday food drive, sorting cans and even doing the service that he was required to do for the class. And I think you're spot on when you're saying, that he's kind of guiding you. And I think, he would want you to be doing what you're doing today. And so we thank you guys again for making the time to do this. Shifting gears just a little bit, we know that being isolated can ramp up feelings of anxiety and depression. And there, likely are students in situations at home that could be very difficult for them. I know you said back in 2007, 2008, it seemed like all the resources were in Cleveland, if you needed to get help. In the meantime, have you learned of any additional resources locally that could maybe help support people during the stay-at-home order?
I've been working with Crossroads for my own personal counseling, and have been able to do that as we are, and also have doctor appointments, whether they're mental health or physical health appointments over the Zoom. So I think if people are concerned that they can't see their doctor for any medical reasons or mental health issues, that that is resolvable through the technology that we have now. 211 is always a good number. I'm sure that the students are aware of that. Catholic Charities is another agency that I work with. I have a woman that's a case manager that helps me manage my life. It sometimes gets, I tend to bite off more than I can chew, and it gets a little, starts running me instead of me running it. And she helps me with that. And we're part of a grandma group. Grandma's raising grandchildren due to parental, drug use, incarceration, whatever. And even our group continues to meet through the technology. So it's pretty amazing that we have this available to us to be able to continue on. So that's a blessing. So I would just say use the technology, which I'm sure all of your students are much more experienced and swift at than I am. It's frustrating for me and slow going.
There's also like Lake Geauga, which does, I don't know like how they're doing stuff during the virus, but they have they do like outpatient treatment, intensive outpatient treatment. Also Laurelwood is good. Like what I'm doing for meetings is pretty much we have Zoom meetings, or there's like listening to leads online, like lead meetings, which are really good. There's this Facebook group called, I think it's like AA Leads 24/7, and like there's private groups you can find to go in that people are leading live, or you could just search like AA Leads on like a search engine, and there's like a lot of good leads. So like it's hard with this because the fellowship is such a huge thing, like of recovery, like again that connection, like not being isolated, but with this happening, like reaching out to people, reaching out to friends, reaching out to people in the program, having like conversations about mental health. Like she was talking about like these mental health issues. Like I had anxiety and depression for a very long time before I even knew what it was. But like, again, mental health is a very stigmatized topic, even within families. Like people don't talk about it. They don't say like, how are you feeling? Like beyond like, oh, I'm doing good. Like, how are you? Just like the general, like not really wanting to know, just like, hey, how are you? The polite talk or whatever, not like, no, really, how are you? Like, are you experiencing any kind of problems? Like, these things, like we need to learn to talk about within our families and in our society, because without that, like especially people who are dual diagnosed, like you can have dual diagnosis with anything, and addiction and alcoholism, with ADHD, with anxiety, with depression, with schizophrenia, with whatever, but like treating the mental health and the alcoholism and addiction is key in order to have recovery. So a starting point would be like mental health, and being honest with mental health providers, therapists, and they can give you a lot of resources there and go from there. But anybody, there's just people want to help. There's people who want to help, and there's people who understand. That's like such a huge thing, because in addiction, it just feels like you're all alone. Nobody gets it. Nobody understands. Nobody knows what it's like. It's like, it's such a relief coming into AA and knowing like everybody has experienced like different levels of the same thing, and it's like that everywhere. So there are resources, you got to look for them.
Thank you.
Let's see, I want to just say something to the students. I think that was one. Well, let's see.
I don't know if it's time. You guys have any more questions?
Yeah, what, really, the last one's our wrap-up question, which is, first of all, a thank you. This is huge for you guys to share your story, to help start to break down the stigma that exists, to keep Zach's memory alive, to let our students who might be facing some of this or might one day be facing this, that there's hope out there. It's huge. So to you both, thank you. I know this has got to be a hard story to tell, but it's so important to us, and we're really grateful. And I guess the last question is there anything that you wanted to share with our students we didn't ask for, that you didn't have a chance to talk about yet?
For me, I would say just like follow your passion with whatever you're doing. Like I don't know, if there's a ton of things that I wanted to do that now I'm in recovery, I had to I have to be in recovery and do all these other things. And now I'm starting to like, okay, now I'm going to be going back to school. Like, what am I going for? I don't know. I love sewing. Okay, I'm sewing again. All right, I want to do this. I want to do that. And it's like, just do what you love to do. Like, if you're loving what you need to do, you don't need to numb. You don't need to escape. Like aside from mental health stuff. And if there are problems, like there's no shame in that. Like go get treatment, get help, because like the sooner the better. And in my opinion, I think everybody would be better off in counseling, even people who don't have mental health issues, because everybody has like experiences in life that they have difficulty with or whatever. It's not like a bad thing, because it's a bad thing to not do the treatment, because the problem's going to be there anyways. If you're going through treatment, you're at least in the solution aspect. So I would say just that kind of stuff, and just help other people. Like the high that you get, let's call it that, whatever, for lack of a better term, is of helping people and like being selfless and giving to people who don't have, is incomparable. And that's like an authentic feeling. You know, it's not like the escape drug, the fake, the phony, the not lasting, the causing a million other problems. And don't think it can't happen to you. If you're trying it, you're taking the risk that it could happen to you. And especially with these heavier substances, even if you might not be predisposed, it can go that way very quickly before you even know it. So the best preventative is not to try it. But I mean, curious minds just do not. And be honest with people, be honest with your loved ones about what's going on, and ask for what you need. So
I want to say to the students that what you're experiencing right now with this pandemic, it may seem unbearable to you. I'm sure that many of you are feeling this is unfair. The future's uncertain. It's scary. You're maybe lonely, or, you know, just angry. It's so sad that you are missing, you know, all the rites of passing for seniors, the traditions. And I think that, you know, my heart breaks as a teacher, a high school teacher. I mean, that's the highlight of our year, graduating the classes and watching them from 9th grade up. The growth, the maturity, the changes, the physical changes, amazing. And to not be able to celebrate that, you know, it breaks my heart also. But just everything, you know, the parties, the trips, the socializing, everything that they're missing. My heart especially goes out to the students that were preparing for musical performances or theater performances. And, you know, may not be able to perform that after a lot of hard work. And you're not alone. You're with a whole entire class of seniors throughout the country. And, you know, everything happens for a reason, but try to take this. You have to take what you've been given, which seems like it stinks. It's crap. But you have to make it into something, mold it, just like my life. It seemed like I got so much hardship. My husband died a year after my son died, in part, I feel, because of his depression over that. But I think that I had to do something. I was so down. I felt like, you know, I can't go any lower. So if you feel that way, get help. I did. Take the time to reflect, bring out the best in you. It's free time. I know many of you, you go to school, you work. I did in high school. There is no time. Maybe you're in sport. There is no time. Now you've got this time to enrich your family life. Be a bigger part of the society. Be a part of the solution to this problem by cooperating with the, social distancing, the quarantine, the masks, all of these things. Try to, appreciate nature, and you can get out and get back in touch with nature in a way that, maybe has gotten lost. So, focus on positive things, be grateful for what you do have, become stronger mentally. If you have hobbies, embrace those hobbies and the time for them. If you don't, if maybe there's always something you wanted to do, give it a try. Let your creativity juices flow. But I think, again, above all, if you or someone else you know of a family member, friend is struggling with mental health issues or substance, even if it's experimentation, the time to catch it would be now instead of waiting till it's a full-blown addiction. And you know, again, the consequences have come in terms of all those that do. And so get help. It is available. Even, you know, start with talking to your parents if you can't. Your teachers, you have wonderful teachers and these PSL teachers that, you know, will listen with their ears and their heart, and they will step up there and help you in any way they can. So please reach out, because there is help, and there certainly is recovery with addiction. There is recovery, and there are success stories. I've got one right here, and I couldn't be more proud of her than if she had getting her graduate degree right now. I'm so proud of her. That's right. So proud of what she has done and the work she's done, because I know that's the hardest thing that she's ever had to do. So again, thank you. This has been a privilege and an honor just to participate and be able to help students and get my nose in the classroom again, because it's so hard to stay out of it now that I'm retired. But anyway, I'm doing a little of it on Chromebook.
Thank you guys again for taking the time. I think we've got probably 4 weeks of online lessons that we're doing, but I can't think of a more important message than the one you guys just shared with us. A great example of, you know, people who are obviously been through some struggle, but turn the struggle into a source of strength and now using it to serve others. So thank you guys for all that you do. We genuinely appreciate it. You've always been awesome speakers in the classroom, and we're glad that we're still able to bring this to the students virtually.
Well,
thank you
so much.